Welcome to City on a Hill Kids Church Online.
I'm Lola.
And I'm Jimmy.
Today we're going to be looking at Psalm 121, verses 1 and 2.
But that will be after a time of worship.
My hope comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. My hope comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. My hope comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He made the heavens and the earth. I lift my eyes up. Where does my help come? Where does my help come from? I lift my eyes up. Where does my help come? Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He made the heavens and the earth. I lift my eyes up. Where does my help come? Where does my help come from? I lift my eyes up. Where does my help come? Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He made the heavens and the earth. He will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not fall asleep. The Lord is your shelter, He is your shade. The sun will not harm you, nor the moon by night. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He made the heavens and the earth. He made the heavens and the earth. He made the heavens and the earth.
Today, we're going to look at Psalm 121, verses 1 and 2. And it says, I lift up my eyes to the hills. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Psalm 121 has just 8 verses, and it is one of the most beautiful psalms. I might say the whole psalm at the end. You know, the whole psalm, or even parts of the psalm, can be used as prayer. But this psalm was a psalm that was used in the days when the children of Israel would have to climb up to Jerusalem. So in those days in Israel, every able-bodied man had to go to Jerusalem 3 times a year for 3 different festivals. In spring, for Passover, in summer, for Shavuot, and in the autumn, for Sukkot. These are 3 festivals that the Israelites would go to Jerusalem for. And they went to Jerusalem because that was where the temple was. That was where God's name was. That was where God was. Not like today, that God is absolutely everywhere, all at the same time, in our hearts, in everything that we do. So, they would have to go to Jerusalem. And Jerusalem was high up on a hill. And it didn't matter which direction that you were coming from. Everybody had to climb up to Jerusalem. And getting there wasn't easy. They would go in large groups of families with up to and even more than 100 people. Climbing up to Jerusalem wasn't easy. It was a challenge because it was really steep. So they would say the whole psalm as if they are marching. So they will say, I lift up my eyes to the hills. And, they'll keep on doing that as though they are marching in time with the psalm. And it wasn't just Psalm 121 that they would do this with. There were a bunch of psalms that they would do this with. And up the hill going to Jerusalem, the ground was different in different places. You had rocky areas, you had areas that were full of forests, and there were wild animals that could come out and attack anybody at any time. So it was rather dangerous. It was also dangerous because you would have bandits, people who are up to no good, come out of hiding in some of the bushes and take things that don't belong to them. So it wasn't an easy journey, and it was made 3 times a year. And they would look up to the hills and ask, where does their help come from? And they would answer, their help comes from the Lord. And in the psalm, it does say the reason why it is said their help comes from the Lord. I'll read the whole psalm for you, and it will tell you a bit more of the reason why they say their help comes from the Lord. And this is how it goes. I'll lift up my eyes to the hills. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in, from this time forth and even forevermore. That's a beautiful psalm, and I read it in the New King James Version. We may not be physically walking up a steep hill, but there may be things going on in our lives that makes it seem as though we are walking up a very steep and dangerous hill. And that's when we look for help. And it's great to know that we have help in our Lord God. We have help in Jesus Christ. And that's who we look to. That is who we call upon when we need help, because he is the one that made heaven and earth. He made us. He's the one that keeps us safe. He keeps us well. He keeps us strong all the time, in our going out and in our coming in, and even forevermore. And that's the end of the story.
Hi everybody! So today's verse, I will lift up my eyes to the hills. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Psalm 121 verses 1 and 2. And this is such a well-known and popular verse. I thought, why don't we just put it on a poster so that we can put that up and always remember, God is my helper. Or you could easily turn this into a card if you wanted to give it to somebody else. And you can see what I've done, really simple. I've drawn around my hand to give the outline of hills, and then I've coloured in the hand as if it's God's hand in the colours of a sunrise. So it's kind of full of hope and joy. And down here at the bottom is little tiny me reaching up to God. So, to make one of these, first of all, get your A4 or whatever colour of paper, whatever size of paper you want, and you want to draw around your hand. And I'm using biro because I found it's actually quite good to have this line around your hand quite dark. Now, if you're using A4 paper, you might find that you want to ask an adult to put their hand on to draw around it, because really the bigger the hand, the better. And so here we have our outline of hills. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to draw a line across near the bottom, and underneath that is where we're going to write the verse. And above that is where we're going to colour in. Now, writing the verse, you can have some options. You can see on this one, I wrote it out in block capitals, which looked a little bit neater, and I've coloured in kind of with sunrise colours. With this one, I actually just wrote it in my normal writing. But whatever you choose to do what we did last week and put some lined paper underneath so that you've got a guide to help you write straight. The next thing to do is to start colouring in. So we'll start with our sun right in the middle of that hand. Really nice and bold and bright. And then after that, what you want to do is just go around the edges of the fingers so you've got a nice clean line of the bright yellow that's just making the edge, because the thing that makes this really effective, as you can see, is the contrast between the bright and the dark. So we want that to be a nice, clean, strong line. Now there are lots of sunrise colours, aren't there? Yellow is the obvious one, but you could use pink or peach or orange or even red, and all of those colours feed into it. If you have a look online, you'll find lots of pictures of sunrises. And once you've got the edge done, then you can start just putting some sunbeams here going down between the hills, just using whatever colours you want to. Once you've got the sunset all completed, or sunrise all completed, then you can start on your hills. So in this one, as you can see, I chose kind of blues and purples. In this one, I decided to make the whole lot black. I think they both look good, so you can decide. But whichever way you do it, make the foreground, the bit right at the front, you want that to be really dark. So I'm just using a black pencil and getting that filled in nice and quickly. When you come to do the hills, it's a good idea to use your pencil going this way, up and down, because that gives a sense of the steepness of the hills. And if you want to have snow at the top, like on this one, make sure you put a line across so that you know where to colour up to, so you can see the snow at the top of the mountain. Now at the edge, like here, you'll just have a sort of edge where you need to put some extra hills, unless your hand's really big and reaches right across. So you can get that all coloured in whatever dark colours you want, and just like you did with the sunset where you went round the edge of the fingers, this time go around the outside of the fingers, making sure that's a really dark bit so that we have that contrast. Once you've got all the hills coloured in and all the hands coloured in, then you can do the rest of the sky, which you can do in more sunset colours, just not quite so bright, or maybe some blue, some grey. And then finally, you want to draw in little you looking up at the hills down at the bottom. And because you're silhouetted, you want little you to be really dark. So again, I'm just using my black biro, or you could use a black pen. Or if you find, because of the kind of crayon that you've used, that pen won't draw over the top, you can just use an ordinary writing pencil and press really hard so it comes out really dark. And I'm just doing it as a little stick figure, but with arms raised up to show that he or she or me are reaching up to God for help. So, a very simple craft this week, but I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you remember that verse, that God is where our help comes from. I'll see you again soon. Bye!
I really like this psalm. Jamie, do you think that we can say verses 1 and 2 off heart?
Yes, I think we can.
Let's say it together. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth.
I wish I could go to Jerusalem and Bethlehem and some of the places that were mentioned in the Bible. I think it will be great to see some of those places.
Me too, but it's true. Our help does come from the Lord. He may use people or circumstances to bring us help, just like in many stories in the Bible. Like Esther for the Jews, Joseph for his family, and Jesus for the whole world.
Jesus, our help, is great because for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. John 3:16.
That's a great help, because it almost sums up Psalm 121 for us. That's it for this week.
Till next time,
Bye!